Welcome to Bristol Wellbeing College's Writing with Emotions workshop, the third in our online series of Writing for Wellbeing. In this session, we will use writing to unearth the common humanity within our emotions, especially within the context of lockdown. There will be some short writing activities for you to do at home. These aim to reveal how dynamic life can be, even in times that can feel a little flat. Before we begin, press pause and grab a pen and paper. You will also need a stopwatch or timer, such as your phone. Emotion versus feeling. Emotion is defined as a strong feeling deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationship with others. Feeling is defined as an emotional state or reaction. As you can see, the two overlap a lot. And while some psychologists do distinguish between emotions and feelings, in this session, we will refer to the two interchangeably. The rainbow of emotion. Generally, we all associate certain emotions with certain colours, such as red for love or anger, or blue for calm or sad. It's interesting to notice that these colours represent contrasting feelings. Why do you think that is? Pause the video and just take a moment to jot down some of your ideas. On the next page, you will see a colour spectrum wheel. I will read out a list of emotions. After each one, pause the video and take a moment to explore which colour you visualise that emotion to be. As you can see, this colour wheel gives you lots of shades and variations of colour to choose from, so do take your time to explore them. Have your pen ready, and I will begin reading out a list of 12 emotions and feelings. Remember, you can pause the video after each one. We'll start with an easy one. Happiness. Rage. Grief. Contentment. Boredom. Jealousy. Amusement. Guilt. Depression. Empathy. Anxiety. Excitement. Universal emotions, universal stimuli. Emotions are an important aspect of being human, and we all experience them. Though emotions are influenced by our thoughts, experiences, and circumstances, which vary from person to person, what is amazing is that as humans, we all tend to communicate our emotions in the same ways, such as laughter, crying, and shouting. Universal stimuli. In the same way, there are situations or circumstances, which we will call stimulus, that generate similar feelings or emotions even among a very diverse range of individuals. This is what makes the current situation of lockdown exceptional. It is truly universal. We are all experiencing it at the same time. And in the next slide, we explore this concept further. Reflecting on your experience of the lockdown period and self-isolation, jot down the feelings and emotions you have gone through during this time. You can pause the video while you do this. So, what did you write? Here were some of mine: anxiety, compassion, frustration, nostalgia, calm, relaxed, confused, and sometimes inspired. So, looking over your own feelings from this period and at mine, are there any that we share? And how many other people do you think share these? It is in these shared feelings that we enjoy our common humanity. Recognizing universal stimuli. We're going to use the emotions we wrote down in the previous slide as a springboard for some writing. Now, a good book is normally good because the author is able to recognize universal stimuli for certain emotions and effectively communicate these to the reader, invoking those emotions in the reader without them actually being there. So over to you. Choosing from one of the emotions you wrote down, think of another circumstance or situation in which you, or perhaps someone else, might feel this. You can make it as general as you like. Just make sure it is something that won't cause you to feel upset or distressed. Things to remember. While you're doing this exercise, here are some things to remember. Don't worry about the quality of your writing. No one else is going to read this unless you want them to. Go with your instinct. Don't let your rational mind get in the way, telling you things like, that's not interesting enough. And don't worry if you get stuck. Sometimes we write a couple of sentences only to find we have nowhere to go with them. And that's okay. Just don't be afraid to start over. And do set yourself a time limit. I recommend a maximum of 15 minutes. On the following page, I share an example that I wrote. The feeling I chose was nostalgia. Sitting on a train journey and staring out the window onto the hazy fields, they pass by one, a blur of green in the foreground, the trees and sheep sweeping by, like the scene is moving past me and not the other way around. Beyond, the horizon appears static, the sky fading into pale pink and blue. My mind wanders to a point in time where I was standing in those fields, in the breeze, under the blossom. It is the most vivid memory I never lived. So, having explored one emotion and how and when we might feel it, we are now going to move on to looking at various emotions that we experience at the same time. It is rare that a person is experiencing only one emotion at any given moment. To see this, have a read of the passage on the following slide and jot down all the emotions and feelings you sense from it. Give yourself as much time as you need to do this. It was only a smile, nothing more. It didn't make everything all right. It didn't make anything all right. Only a smile, a tiny thing, a leaf in the woods, shaking in the wake of a startled bird's flight. But I'll take it, with open arms, because when spring comes, it melts the snow one flake at a time, and maybe I'd witness the first flake melting. And that is from Khaled Hosseini's The Kite Runner. Identifying our multiple emotions. So, How many emotions did you sense from Husseini's passage? Don't worry if it wasn't many. Just consider, do any of those emotions conflict with one another? For example, I would say there was sadness, resignation, inspiration, hope, bitterness, and a little joy. Interestingly, remember going back to our rainbow of emotions, that we do often visualize conflicting or contrasting emotions as the same color. So, returning to those emotions that you've experienced during lockdown, consider which of these overlap with one another. How many of them do you feel all at once? Which are the dominant ones, and which the quieter ones? It is these underlying quieter emotions that we call third level emotions, and which we also want to identify and convey when we're writing about emotion. Writing is a process that can help you delve deeper and unearth those third level emotions. So try the following in your own time. Take a moment to think about the dominant emotion being experienced. In my case, I will use nostalgia again. Now, dig a little deeper. What other emotions are present? For me, as well as nostalgia, I'm noticing there is impatience. And now, really focusing, what else is there? Look for that third level emotion. For me, when I focus on it, behind nostalgia and impatience, I find a hopefulness. When you're doing this, here are a couple of points to consider. Your three emotions may not seem to fit together, or may seem to contradict one another, such as impatience and focus did in my case. We often feel conflicting emotions, and this is what makes us dynamic beings. The way we communicate ourselves should be just as dynamic. Be aware of the emotions you choose. Try ones that have more positive connotations for you at this time, or that you find easier to explore. Dynamic being, dynamic page. So, how can you go about communicating all these emotions on a page? One useful writer's tip is to show, not tell. This is a method used that avoids telling the reader what the emotion feeling is, and instead shows them by using imagery. For example, telling would be, I felt sad and wanted to cry. Whereas showing would be, I looked away, a lump rose in my throat. This is something you can try in your own time. Have a go at writing a paragraph that shows, not tells, a morning, afternoon, or evening during the lockdown. You can use some of the emotions you wrote down at the beginning, trying to communicate each one without saying directly what it is. Or remember, you don't have to use your own experience. You can always think about someone else's. Here are some tips. Use body language and actions. Use power verbs. So thinking about what other words you can use instead of said, made, or did. Try to involve all your senses. So what are you hearing when you're really frustrated? compared to what you hear when you're very calm? Have a go, and remember to set yourself a time limit. You can also refer to the writing tips from earlier in the video to help you. And as always, you don't have to keep your words to yourself. Please feel free to share some of your writing from these activities. Just take a photo of your page, making sure the writing is clearly visible, and send it to bristol.wellbeing.college@secondstep.co.uk. We're always on the lookout for blog material. We hope you found this session useful and that it has helped you think about your experience of lockdown and self-isolation in a different way. Our next workshop, Stories Together in Isolation, will bring together elements from all three of these Writing for Wellbeing videos to help us create stories we'd like to share. This workshop is coming soon, and we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.